Kamala Harris, she is a Democratic senator and presidential contender. She tweeted out this morning. I want to show this, the essence of what I want to talk about within this tweet. She says, "We need a president who will confront the issue of climate change head on and base decisions on science fact, not science fiction." Mark, is this idea, this 97% of scientists agree that man is creating the changes in our climate, is that scientific fact or is that scientific theory?
That's a scientific con job. In fact, I have a whole chapter in my book, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change, just on the 97% claim. It was actually invented so that the non-scientists could just silence debate of anyone around them. Like, hey, all scientists agree, 97%. Who are you to challenge that? And this claim was quite literally pulled out of thin air, in the words of one United Nations scientist who did an analysis of it. It turns out in one study, 97% of scientists wasn't even 97 scientists. It was 77 scientists, and they were anonymous. We don't know who they are. We don't know their affiliation. And only 75 out of 77 of those scientists answered the question correctly to form the mythical 97% consensus.
Right, and I always like to remind people, it doesn't even matter if it were 97% of scientists. Consensus does not science make. Consensus, opinion or ideology makes. That's great if you have your friends and you agree on something, but that doesn't make it right. And I would remind people that at one time, the brightest minds, scientists, thought the world was flat. And at one time, the brightest minds in science thought if you put leeches on your arm, that would heal you from illnesses. So scientific consensus or consensus among scientists does not science make. And if you disagree, and I think, Mark, you can probably speak to this, if you disagree, this is very anti-science, you are ostracized from the scientific community that is supposed to theoretically be based on skepticism.
Yes, and that's the thing. If you are an alleged climate denier, as they like to say, and you're not part of the 97% they claim, you are then castigated. I have a whole chapter in my book on that. Scientists whose careers were literally ruined. Interesting case in point, Joanne Simpson, Dr. Joanne Simpson, the first woman PhD meteorologist in America, worked at NASA. She worked there for decades. Right after she retired, she said, "Now that I'm retired, I can finally say it. I'm a global warming skeptic." The first woman PhD meteorologist, imagine all the hurdles she had to overcome in her field. And she was too timid to speak out to say she was a skeptic until after she retired from NASA. That's how powerful these forces are. And it's beyond just what I mentioned in one study. They've had studies of 10,000 plus studies, and they claim 97% of the studies endorse the consensus. Turns out less than 1% of the studies in this study that they claim actually endorse the idea that humans are responsible for more than 50% of the warming.